We got a very interesting show for you tonight, guys. May not be what you were expecting. It may not be what you were expecting because tonight you're all in for a kind of a treat. If you are interested in me and my life journey, because some stuff came up tonight. Oh, hey, great job tonight. Something came up with my guest here tonight, guys. My guest had to cancel at the last minute. So tonight, guys, very special edition of Forgiveness Culture. I am going to be sharing my own testimony. OGJ, I'm really glad that you're here to record this because this is going to be a very powerful and very meaningful story for myself. I'm going to kind of go into great detail about the biggest forgiveness story and testimony of my life. And it's going to highlight kind of a lot of how I kind of came to this concept of forgiveness culture, how I came to this spirit, and why I focus on forgiveness so much and the culture of forgiveness so much. Again, you're gonna have to forgive me that my hair looks so bad, but that's just the way things are tonight. Now, if you've never been here before, we want to welcome you to the show. Forgiveness Culture is a show that we do every Wednesday at this time, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. if you live on the West Coast, and 8 p.m. if you live somewhere in the mountains for some reason. But we do this every week, and we host guests who share a testimony of some kind of pain or some kind of trauma or some kind of betrayal that they've gone through, and their journey towards healing and forgiveness and getting over the hurt that they had in their life and how that love has blessed them. Again, this week, guys, our guest, Anti, guys, if you don't know Anti, an amazing streamer, he did have to cancel. He is dealing with a personal situation. So if any of you guys, I'm not going to share his, put out his business here on the app, but if you guys know Anti, if you're a follower of his, if you're a supporter of his, or if you just know who he is, go by his live next time he's live, or send him a DM telling him that that you're with him, that we love him, and that we hope that his situation gets resolved very soon. But yes, guys, this is an opportunity for me to share with you guys my forgiveness story, which is, and again, y'all are gonna have to forgive my hair. I don't know why my hair looks so bad tonight, guys. I worked on it for like 20 minutes. I couldn't get it right. I'm sorry. I have extra product in it tonight too. I still just couldn't get it. It's like all wavy and it's like flat. I don't know. It's not, it's just, it is what it is. You guys know me. I am known almost more for making sure that fixing my hair than I am for forgiveness. I don't know. What do you guys think I'm known more for? My hair fixing or forgiveness? I don't know. Probably the hair fixing. Forgiveness is definitely a close second though, Forgiveness is definitely a close second. So guys, if you've never been here before, let me tell you about this show. We already said we have guests every week to share their story about forgiveness and how that's blessed their life. We talk about what forgiveness means. We talk about the dynamic and static aspects of forgiveness. And we're going to get a little bit more about what that means. Every week we have a forgiveness challenge. And we talk about a challenge or a misconception about forgiveness. And each week we explore that forgiveness challenge. This week's challenge, guys, is how do you forgive someone that you really, really don't like? How do you forgive someone that you really, really don't like? So we're going to be talking about that. Again, guys, my guest had to cancel tonight, guys. So I will be sharing my own personal forgiveness testimony. It's going to tell you all about how I came to this spirit and attitude. So thank you, Chris. Y'all make sure you hit Chris Casper up and congratulate him on 6,000 Instagram followers. Few housekeeping chores before we get started, guys. First things first, I may not read every single comment. I'm trying to, I'll probably be a little bit easier tonight just because, I am going to be going solo. But I don't read every comment. I may not thank you for every gift. I want to thank you in advance for all the gifts, guys. Everything I get is reinvested back into this app. So I just want to thank you already. If I don't thank you personally while you send it, I'm thanking you right now. Also, I'm going to ask that everybody be very, very respectful in the chat. Normally, we have a guest in here, guys, and every week guests share very personal and private information in an effort to bless you guys, in an effort to share something that can hopefully touch your heart, your soul, and bring you a little bit of joy and hope and peace. So we're going to ask that everybody's very respectful, even though I'm not having a guest this week, even though I am going to be going solo, I'm going to ask that you be respectful of me. Now, that's a little bit different than my normal streams, right? Because normal streams, I'm thanking everybody for every gift. I'm reading every comment. And yes, Hoop was on the first show. Shout out. I'm reading every comment. I'm thanking for every gift. I am, super, super engaged with you guys. And I let any comments go as long as you're not being like really, really, really over the top. Nobody gets kicked from the stream. Things are going to be a little bit different tonight. If you can't be respectful, you will be silently escorted out of the chat. But you can come back another time, and you can bring all your trolling natures with you at that time. But we're going to keep it very respectful tonight, as we do every night, even though we don't have technically a guest. Tonight, I'm the guest, and so you're going to be respectful of the guests, even when that guest is me. Also, guys, this show is about exploring the power of forgiveness and what it can mean. The reason I started this show, guys, is there's a lot of people hurting out there, guys, and I believe that forgiveness is one of the quickest paths to healing when you're hurt. So I see a lot of hurt people out in this world. I know there's probably some people who are hurting right now. Forgiveness, I believe, is one of the purest aspects of love, and we're all about love culture on this stream. And we hope that if you're struggling with forgiveness, if you're struggling with healing and moving on to that part of your life, that hopefully something that you hear tonight can bless you. Last thing I want to say before we get started with the actual show. Actually, I have a few more things before we get started with the actual show. I don't have a guest, so I can take my time, right? Nothing we say tonight is, I'm not a mental health expert, so guys, please don't take anything I say or do here tonight as professional mental health expertise. I am just here to spread a good message and spread the power of forgiveness and talk about what that can mean in your life. So if you are dealing with significant mental health issues, we encourage you to seek out that professional help. Again, this is a show that seeks to open the door for you to explore what forgiveness could do for you. Anyways, I want to do a quick shout out to what inspired the show before we get started. There is a charity in the UK that inspired the show called the Forgiveness Project. And the Forgiveness Project does what I do here on this stream on a much larger scale. They host on their podcast, they have a book, they have a website, they go around to different mental health conferences all around the world, where they have people who've been through severe trauma. I'm talking about, family victims of, or family members of murder victims, sexual assault victims, anything, you name it. And they talk about the difficulties they had in forgiving these people, but how forgiving those people has really, really blessed their life. So again, this is Forgiveness Culture, inspired by the Forgiveness Project. We're not officially in any way affiliated with them, but they are the inspiration for the show. Also, after we go over our forgiveness challenge, which this week, guys, is how do you forgive someone that you really, really don't like? We're gonna share a story from the Forgiveness Project book about a guy. Y'all don't want to miss this story. This story is really amazing. It's about a guy who was shot 6 times and was involved in all kinds of negative activity in his life, filled with hate, and how he learned to forgive. So. And he said that forgiveness was the path to curing his hatred. So y'all, please stay tuned for that. It's going to be an amazing, amazing story. And then we're going to get to our esteemed guest, which tonight is me. All right. I'm your esteemed guest here tonight. And we're going to talk about, I'm going to go into detail about a story that I've touched on if you've ever been to my life before. I've touched on this story before, but I'm going to talk about a forgiveness episode that I went through in college, and how that basically shaped my whole life from that point. So let's get started. Again, if you're just joining us, this is the Forgiveness Project. Every week we talk about forgiveness and the power of forgiveness and what that could do for you and how that could bless your life. Now, as we start every week, guys, we're going to talk about the definition of forgiveness. We're going to talk about the static definition of forgiveness. And what I mean by a static definition is, what is that concrete definition of forgiveness that we all have, that we're all going to get on the same page for? Because a lot of times people have different conceptions of forgiveness. A lot of times people get forgiveness confused with pardoning, right? We think that sometimes people think forgiveness means we're pardoning someone, right? That we're excusing them from the consequences of their actions, which is not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is first and foremost for ourselves, and it's a way for us to free ourselves. So we're going to go into deep detail about that. Then we're going to talk about the dynamic aspects of forgiveness, because although we're going to have a static, concrete definition of forgiveness, we want to talk about how that could look different in different people's lives. And that's one of the greatest things I love about having guests on the show every week, guys. I get to hear of how that forgiveness looks in different people's lives. And every single week I learn something. Heck, I might even learn something for myself tonight. I don't know. It's possible. You know, I learned stuff. Sometimes you learn stuff from yourself. Have you ever gone through your day and you're doing something or you're talking and you learn something from yourself, like while you were saying something or while you're explaining something or while you're doing something? Am I the only one who feels that way? I don't know. That happens to me sometimes. So, all right, let's talk about the definition of forgiveness. So if you look up forgiveness in the dictionary or in any kind of online websites, you're going to get a definition that's very, very close to the definition I'm about to give you. I use a specific definition that was created by Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who is one of the foremost speakers and authors of forgiveness. And even though he's a man of clergy, it's a very secular definition. It's not something that has anything to do with God or religion at all. So it's something that any of us, whether we're people of faith or not, can get on the same page with. So the definition of forgiveness is releasing the right to hating and releasing the right to revenge. And in so doing, releasing ourselves from the chains of victimhood. I'm going to say that again. Forgiveness is releasing the right to hate. It's releasing the right to revenge and releasing ourselves from the chains of victimhood. Now, forgiveness, like I said earlier, guys, is first and foremost for ourselves. Now, when somebody hurts us, right, for a lot of us, what is our gut reaction? If someone hurts us, we want to see them hurt back. If someone punches us, someone comes up and punches you, right? What's your immediate reaction going to be? You want to seek revenge, right? You want to punch them back. It's natural. And even if you don't hurt them back, you want to sometimes see them get hurt back. How many times have you not taken, put a 1 in the comment section if you maybe not seeked revenge, but you're like, oh boy, I really hope karma gets you. I really hope something bad happens to you and you experience what you're making me feel. It's the same thing. Even if you're not actively taking revenge, you're seeking that right. You're holding on to that right to hate that person and right to revenge. And that's a very natural reaction. So if you're sitting there going, oh my God, am I a terrible person because I have that? No, even me. And believe me, I'm a very, very strong and natural practicer of forgiveness. Even I will have that gut reaction when someone hurts you. You want to see them hurt, right? We want to see that fairness. It's only right. They hurt us. They should get hurt too. It's not fair otherwise, right? A lot of people believe in karma. A lot of people think that is what makes things just, right? The problem with that is while that may seem natural and that may give us a misguided sense of power by holding on to that hatred and holding on to that desire for revenge, all that's really doing is burdening you. It's bringing toxicity on you. It's not doing anything to that person. I mean, think about this, guys. If someone hurts you, maybe somebody backstabbed you, not literally, but like maybe somebody broke your trust. Maybe someone cheated on you. Pick your poison. You know, you're harboring on to this hatred. You're harboring on to this revenge or this resentment that you want to see them, get what they deserve or be hurt, or I want to make them suffer. I want to make them feel what I feel. That person is not feeling that hatred. That person is not feeling that resentment. Who's feeling that resentment every day? It's you. You're the one burdening yourself with that toxicity. That person's out living their life. They ain't thinking about you. They hurt you. You think they're thinking about, oh man, I shouldn't have done that. If they did, they would come and apologize to you and maybe y'all could reconcile. But people who hurt you are off living their lives. They're not thinking about how they hurt you. They're probably living out their lives or hurting someone else. So if you harboring on to this right to hate them and this right to revenge, you're giving that person more power. And the problem with this is, guys, and although it may seem like you have a misguided sense of power when you hold on to that, right? It gives you that adrenaline, right? It gives you that sense of toughness that I'm not going to let no one punk me. I'm holding on to this. The problem is when we hold on to that, what usually happens is we end up taking that out on others. And usually, more often than not, it's the people that we care about and we love, or the people that we see every day. So that person who hurt you, and you're harboring onto that hatred, and you're harboring onto that resentment and revenge mindedness, you're taking that out on your coworkers, your friends, your family. And you may not do it consciously, right? You may not do it like, oh, I'm angry, I'm gonna hurt this person. Oh, I'm gonna take this out on my kids. I'm gonna take this out on my mom. I'm gonna take this out on my girlfriend. I'm gonna take this out on my boyfriend. But what happens is you're having that toxicity burdening you, and that's gonna manifest itself in your behavior, because hatred is a very strong emotion. Resentment and revenge are very strong emotions. Luckily, love is stronger, but when you harbor that toxicity, not only is that person not thinking about you, not only are you burdening yourself, but now you're hurting other people. How many times have we heard hurt people, right? And it's true. And we think that we have that misguided sense of power when we're holding on to that hatred, when we're holding on to that resentment. The ironic thing about that is we're giving that person who hurt us more power now. Now, not that they only have power over us, they have power over the people that we're hurting. They're having power over your girlfriend who you just took that out on. They're having power over your children who you're taking that out on, your coworkers. And then it could manifest it. I mean, guys, we could go down the rabbit hole and talk about how deep that path could go. But you're giving that person more control by harboring onto that, even if you don't actively take revenge, actively hatred. Forgiveness is first and foremost for ourselves. We're saying, you know what? You hurt me. I'm not letting you have any power over me. What you did, it wasn't right. And again, we're not releasing people from the consequences of their action, right? We're not saying that there's no consequence. If someone hurts you, someone, really, really, really betrays your trust and hurts you deeply, you're not going to go, it's okay. You know what I mean? Let's go ahead and go to lunch now. Let's go ahead and move on. Sometimes reconciliation is possible. But we're not pardoning and releasing someone from the consequences of their actions. When somebody hurts us, when somebody does something, there's going to be a consequence. That consequence could be a lot of things. If it's serious enough, that consequence could mean going to prison. I mean, obviously, if someone assaults you or, does something serious, that could end in prison. It could be something, if someone, for example, someone cheated on you or lied to you, it could mean something like a breakup. It could mean something like that person is not going to be in your life, or a divorce or something like that. It could mean reconciliation, because sometimes maybe that person will come to the table and be truly repentant and conciliatory for what they're doing. I don't know what that is, but Aaron, what is this? I'm sorry, I don't usually take time to acknowledge the gift, but what in God's name was that? That's really, really cool. Thank you, Aaron. Where was I? Sorry, I got a little distracted. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, that was pretty cool. Sorry, I'm not supposed to do that. No, you're good. Where was I? Y'all help me out. Where was I? We were talking. Okay, we came. This is why I shouldn't reconciliate. Yeah, so there's going to be. See, I love it. This is why I love featured shows. We got enough people here, and they can get me back on track. So there's always going to be consequences for that action. Now, let's go back to the definition before we go on to the next part of the show. I want to go back to the definition really quickly. Notice in the definition of forgiveness, it doesn't say releasing hatred and releasing revenge. It says releasing the right to hatred and releasing the right to revenge. Now, why is that important? Why is it important that that word right is on there? Because you don't actively have to hate someone actively or actively be seeking revenge to harbor onto the toxicity that can bring. What do I mean by that? So maybe John hurt me, right? Maybe John was a really good friend of mine, and John did something that really, really hurt me. And I'm not hating John. I'm not actively, doing anything out of hatred. I'm not actively seeking revenge. But in the back of my mind, right, I'm saying, you know what? I may not be doing it, but I deserve to do it. If I wanted to, I deserve it. If I may not be actively hating you, but I deserve to hate you. I may not be seeking revenge, but I deserve to take revenge against you. The problem with that, guys, is that still giving that power to that hatred and to the revenge, even if you're not seeing, because as long as you hold on to that, as long as you feel like I've got a right to do that, even if I don't do it, even if I'm going to bury it deep down and say I'm not going to do it, as long as you're harboring that right to revenge and that right to hate, you are chaining yourself as a victim. You're chaining yourself as a victim because you're still saying that whatever this person did has some power over you, even if it's indirect. So forgiveness is letting go of that right to hate and that right to take revenge. And in so doing, you are freeing yourself from being a victim. You're saying, I'm not a victim anymore. What you did has no power over me. I'm going to go live my best life, and bye, if necessary. Sometimes that may mean excusing someone out of your life, right? It could. If that person is reconciliatory, maybe y'all could rebuild that trust. Like, again, every situation is different, which is going to get into our next part of the forgiveness, which is the dynamic aspect. We just talked about that static definition of forgiveness, releasing the right to hate and releasing the right to revenge and releasing ourselves from the chains of victimhood. But that can look very different, right? When someone hurts us, it can look very, very, very different from person to person and situation to situation. Sometimes that could mean like in serious situations we talked about, right? Someone could go to prison if someone assaults someone, or someone commits, a murder or something like that. Forgiveness does not mean releasing the consequences of what someone's done. It could mean that trust is broken irreparably. Put a 1 in the comment section if someone has hurt you to the point where you're never going to be able to trust them again. Put a 1 in the comment section if someone's hurt you to the point where you're never going to be able to trust them again. I would say probably pretty much everyone in here. I know for me, I've been hurt by some people that to the point where I'm never going to be able to trust them again. Probably reconciliation, getting close with that person is probably not going to happen. But that doesn't mean we harbor onto that hatred and that resentment, right? We say this quote every week, and it's such a true quote. Listen very carefully. Just because you don't want somebody at your dinner table doesn't mean you don't want them to eat. And just because you want someone to eat doesn't necessarily mean you want them at your dinner table. Releasing someone from that hatred and resentment and letting them go and saying, I'm not going to harbor that against you. I'm going to be free. That may mean, hey, you know what? As part of that consequence, you're not going to be part of my life anymore. Because being an essential element of my forgiveness in this situation that means not having you in my life anymore. Because with you are going to stay in my life, I'm not going to be able to have that forgiveness. That could be. Now, sometimes, right, if someone's truly repentant and conciliatory, you can reconcile. And those are great. I love those stories too. Don't hear me say just because someone hurt you, you have to cut them out of your life. Every situation is different. But that is why I love having guests on the show every week, because we get to take a look at those dynamic aspects of forgiveness. And even though we have that concrete static definition, we get what does that look like in different people's lives? We've had Hoops on the show. We have had so many people on the show. We had Best Friend on the show. Last week we had Miss Tawny on the show. We've had a lot of people on the show, even before it was featured, that has really opened my eyes about how different forgiveness can look in different people and how the different consequences can look as a result of that forgiveness. Sometimes it can mean reconciliation. Sometimes it doesn't. Now, we are going to move on. If you're just joining us, this is the Forgiveness Project, where we talk each week about the power, hope, and peace that can be found in forgiveness. And we host Forgiveness Culture. Thank you. Have I been saying Forgiveness Project? One day, guys, one day, I'm going to get the name of my show right. You would think by now I would know what the name of my own show is, but I didn't, right? But yes, this is Forgiveness Culture, where every week we talk about the hope and peace that can be found in forgiveness, and we host guests who tell their testimony of overcoming different obstacles, struggles, traumas, hurts in their life, and their specific journeys towards healing through forgiveness. This week's guest is me, so stay tuned for more forgiveness story. But every week after we go through our definition and we talk about what forgiveness is so we can all be on the same page about it, we talk about a different forgiveness challenge. And this week's challenge is how different forgiveness can look when you have to forgive someone you really, really don't like. And this is a tough one. This is a tough one because sometimes forgiveness can be easier when it's someone you don't like. But more often than not, it's more challenging. And why might it be easier? Because sometimes if you really, really like someone, or you really, really love someone, that hurt, that betrayal can cut a lot deeper, right? That betrayal can cut a lot deeper. But sometimes, because of the fact that we love or we like that person, if that person is conciliatory, or because we have a respect for that person, it may be a little bit easier for us to release that hate and release that resentment. But what if you really, really just don't like this person? Put a 1 in the comment section if you've been hurt by someone that you just really, really don't like. I know I have. And I like everybody. So I would think that probably all of us to a degree have been hurt by someone I don't like. This can be challenging, right? Because part of forgiveness is talking about, and please someone keep an eye on whoever hits that 32.5 because I need to put them in my bio. Part of the definition of forgiveness is we're releasing that hatred, right? And it's a lot harder to release hatred towards someone that we really don't like because we don't like them, right? It's a lot easier to hate someone and have resentment for someone and to want to take revenge on someone that we don't like, right? I mean, because we don't like them. They're not our friends. We don't want them to be our friends. And we don't particularly care for this person. So it's a lot easier to say, no, I'm not going to forgive you. Screw you, dude. I don't like you. The problem is, if we go back to our definition of forgiveness, right? If we go back to our definition of forgiveness, remember that it's freeing yourself. Forgiveness is first and foremost for yourself. While it can bless others, forgiveness is first and foremost for yourself. So if you fail to forgive someone who you don't like, now, not only are you pigeonholing yourself into victimhood by failing to forgive that person, but now think about this just for a second. Now you're giving someone that you don't like power. Now think about that next time you don't forgive someone you don't like. So not only are you giving power to someone who hurt you, but you're giving power to someone you don't like. At least if you like them, you could say, well, you know, they hurt me, I'm a victim, but I love this person, I like this person, you know, but who wants to give their power away to someone they don't even like? You're going to let this person affect your daily life and affect the way your happiness and affect your joy in life and affect your success in life and affect the people that you like interact with, your friends, you don't even like them. How the heck are you going to let them control you? And remember, failing to forgive is giving away your control. Why the hell would I want to give away my control to someone I don't even like? I barely want to give it away to someone I do like. And keep this in mind, guys. When we fail to forgive someone, what we are doing, this is what unforgiveness is. Unforgiveness is drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. I'm going to say that again. Unforgiveness is drinking poison and hoping that the other person dies. You ingesting that poison of unforgiveness, you holding on to that hatred, that right to revenge, you are poisoning yourself. That person is not affected. So don't give your power away for God's sake to someone that you don't like. Think about that the next time you're harboring on to hatred for someone you don't like. You are giving someone you don't like power and control over your life. This is the Forgiveness Project, guys. Forgiveness Culture. I swear to God, one day I will get the name of my show correctly. I will get it correct one day, right? Every week, guys, we talk about the hope and peace that can be found in forgiveness, and we highlight guests who share their testimonies of healing that has been found through different forgiveness journeys. This week's guest is me. Our scheduled guest, Auntie, guys. He is dealing with a personal situation. I'm not going to share his private business out there, but if you know Auntie, go give him a warm message. Tell him that you love him. He's dealing with some stuff, and our thoughts and our prayers are with him tonight. After we talk about the definition of forgiveness and we talk about our weekly challenge of forgiveness, and this week's weekly challenge was how do we forgive someone that we really don't like? We share a story from either popular culture or the Forgiveness Project book that highlights a forgiveness story from either the news or from people who are part of this charity called the Forgiveness Project. This week's story is actually from the Forgiveness Project. It usually is. And it's from a man named Hashim Garrett. Now, guys, y'all want to listen to this story because what's really unique about Hashim's story is that most people that we talk about, they develop the hatred as a result of whatever hurt them that they need to forgive for, right? So someone hurts them deeply, they develop a hatred as a result of that hate, that trauma. This person this week that we're talking about, this person had deep roots in hatred before he was hurt, before he was traumatized. And actually through his trauma, he was actually able to find peace. This is a really powerful story. So Hashim Garrett was a 15-year-old and living with his mother in the Bronx when he was shot 6 times, causing him to be paralyzed for the rest of his life from the waist down. Now, it was back in May of 1990. Hashim was very, very, very misguided youth. All right. His mother lived in an abusive home with his stepfather. His father did not really, in his opinion, rescue him from that abuse. He was abused. His mother was abused. Hashim got into deep violence, gang activity, drugs, you name it. By the time he was 15 years old, he was hanging around the wrong crew and definitely doing the wrong things. And he had a lot of hatred in his heart. He had a lot of violence in his heart. He was always getting in fights. Obviously, as a gang member, you've probably been in a fight or two. There's a lot of violence, both with and without weapons. Hashim was very angry. He described it as an evil streak inside him. And he was already consumed with hatred before this incident was about to occur. One evening, some people he thought were his friends at the time called him out, and he thought they were going out to do some, just whatever friends do. But it ended up not being his friends. It ended up being some thugs who ended up trying to kill him, and he was shot 6 times. He was shot 6 times and rushed to the hospital. He said he remembers being in the ambulance and in the hospital and them saying several times, "Oh my God, we're going to lose him. He's going to die." He says, "I could hear the police and I could hear my neighbors gathering and saying, he's saying he's going to die. He's dying. He needs this. He needs that. Stat." And he came very, very close to death. And he said, "All I wanted at this time was my mom." And it was and he said, despite the fact that his mom had gone through all this stuff with the stepfather and been through all this violence, and even after he pulled through this incident, Hashim's mom never stopped believing in him. Hashim, obviously, who was already filled with a lot of hatred, already filled with a lot of hostility and violence. Now we're adding depression on top of that because now he's paralyzed from the waist down. He was very, very depressed, but his mother never stopped believing in him. She said he was going to go to college. He was going to have a great job. He was still going to get married. And he thought his mom was crazy. He's sitting here. He's disabled. He's angry. He doesn't have good grades. How the heck am I going to go to college? How the heck am I going to ever get married, Mom? Who are you kidding? He ended up going back to school, and he started taking a deep look. He started going to church. He started taking a deep look at making the changes in his life because he said his mother believing him, even when she had no reason to do so, was what inspired him to want to be better. And what ended up happening is when he learned about forgiveness, he said it all started at the hospital. His friends, his real friends, all wanted revenge. His friends, his gang members, they all wanted to go out and find the people who did this. It was a blood debt that they needed to go out and they needed to seek revenge and shoot up these people who did this to him. And he didn't want that. He didn't want that. And he said, you know, if it was someone else in my gang, I would have probably had the same reaction, but it was me. I didn't want my friends to have to go through what I just went through. I didn't want them to get deeper into that life and be what just gone through what I went through because of my hate. And this is the crazy thing about this. He started embracing forgiveness, letting go of that hatred, letting go of that desire for revenge. And he said, this is what's crazy. He said, getting shot 6 times actually saved his life. Think about that for a second. Getting shot 6 times actually saved his life. He said, if I hadn't have been shot and been exposed to just how deep the violence and hatred that was consuming me was going, I would have been dead. He said, this shooting, although it's paralyzed me, saved my life. He started being active in his community. He started reading the works of Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr., and they became his mentors. He gave up the drug life. He gave up the gang life, and he started wanting to make his mother proud because he knew that putting his mother through this, he said, my mom was already dealing with being abused at home, and now she's having to deal with the trauma of her son being almost killed. He said he felt a lot of guilt, the fact that his lifestyle is adding more anxiety onto his mother. He said, I thank God that it happened, even though I missed the use of my legs. He says, if it hadn't happened, I never would have learned about the power of forgiveness. He says, I never would have been able to turn from violence. I never would have been able to get out of the lifestyle. He went on to college. He went on to graduate college, and now he is he works part of an award-winning assembly program that stresses honest communication and conflict resolution and works towards anti-violence and peaceful solutions. He is married, and he has 2 children, and he has dedicated his life to this cause, all because of this incident taught him the power of forgiveness. And wow, I don't know about that. I don't know if I could have that kind of strength to say that being shot and getting paralyzed saved my life. But he went on the very last part of his story to say, a lot of people think that the strength is found in revenge. A lot of people think that the strength is found in getting even. Getting even, he said, is easy. Getting even is extremely easy. He said getting revenge is very, very natural. He said, but it's very weak. He said real strength is letting go of that hatred. Real strength is letting go of that revenge. He said real strength is being able to live your life without that hatred and moving beyond it. Many people are not able to move beyond that hatred. Those people don't have the strength that it takes to forgive. Cool story, guys. Cool story that he's saying that for the power, the strength it takes to forgive takes much more strength and courage than the strength that it takes to take revenge. If you're just joining us, this is the Forgiveness Project, where every week we host guests who talk about the hope and peace that is found in forgiveness culture. I swear to God, forgiveness culture, where each week we host guests who talk about the hope and peace that can be found in forgiveness. They share their testimony, and we explore the power that forgiveness can play in your healing. I believe that forgiveness is one of the most central elements of love, and I believe that it's one of the strongest keys and most pivotal keys found in forgiveness. Now, this week, guys, our guest, Mr. Ante, going through a bit of a personal situation. We wish him well. So I am going to share a story of my own forgiveness. Now, I had planned to, what's up, Mary Jane? Thank you. I had planned to kind of dedicate a whole show to this, but this kind of literally came up in the past hour, so I kind of had to scramble on what to do, and I didn't want to cancel the show. So we're going to talk about my own story. All right, guys. So if you ever want to know about how Moore got to where we are, here we go. So I'm going to start from my childhood. All right. You may see this kind, loving person that you see before you, and I am. I believe in kindness. I believe in love. I believe in forgiveness. But when I was a kid, I was rotten. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and I'm not going to go into all those reasons. But I struggled fitting in when I was a kid. I struggled finding my place, my identity, where I belonged as a kid. And I dealt with a lot of, thank you for the roses, sweet light. How you doing? I dealt with a lot of bullying as a result of the fact that I had a special needs sister, as a result of a lot of other things, just kind of my own maybe insecurities or my own issues that I was dealing with. But I was bullied relentlessly in school. My response to that that bullying and that those feelings of inadequacies was to act out against others. So I was always getting in trouble. I was suspended from school. I can't even tell you how many times I was suspended from elementary school, junior high school. I got kicked out of so many schools. My parents had to start sending me to private reform schools, and I got kicked out of those. So I was kicked out of almost every school I ever went to. And then around age 12, my parents said that, and there's a lot of things. I didn't do anything like crazy, like assault people. I was never violent, but just very strong disobedience, having a big mouth, doing whatever I could to just, get negative attention. And, I brought alcohol to school one day, even though I didn't drink it. But anyways, I was pretty rotten as a kid, and I got kicked out of so many schools by the time I was 12. And during this time, I was dealing with a lot of depression, and just a lot of depression as a result of, being ostracized, always being considered by my teachers as a bad kid, and just always feeling myself like I was a bad kid because, I was always getting in trouble. It got so bad that when I was 12, my parents decided it was time to send me to military school. So your boy Moore actually went to military school. A lot of people don't know this. And I'm not going to go into the whole story of what happened, but during that time, it did not help. Let me just say, it did not help at all. I went into a deep and total depression, thought about ending my life at the time. And it was around that time that I found faith. And that faith really helped me. And I'm not going to go into all of, my journey towards meeting God and all that stuff, but I'll tell that to you if you ever want to know that on one of my other on my normal streams, or I'll tell you outside the chat. But I found God, and that really turned my life around. So around 13, 14, got out of military school. My parents were like, oh, military school cured him. He's like this wonderful child now. He's so well behaved. He's such a good kid now. Obviously, I'm gonna tell you guys, military school didn't do anything for me. It was my faith that I found when I was at my lowest point, which is often what happens, right? When people reach their lowest point, that's when they really finally, when they hit rock bottom, that they're able to turn their life around, either through faith or reform or whatever. Wasn't military school, I can tell you that. But I came back, and in high school, I was this, new Christian. I was this new person. I was embracing kindness. I was embracing love. I was a very peaceful person, and I want to share that with others. But I still struggled with finding out who I was. Who was I? I'm still coming into my own identity. I didn't quite know who I was. Sweet delicious. I didn't know how I was supposed to function in this new world as this new person with this new heart. So in high school, I kind of wandered around a little bit. I had friends for sure, but I was that kid at lunch who I would always look, because this is how my heart works. I would look for the kid who was sitting by himself, and I would go sit next to him and just be his friend and talk to him at lunch. I never sat with the same group of people. I just always went to sit. And most of the time the kids were loaded, right? Because, no one was sitting next to them. They wanted a friend, hey, so now sometimes if you ever sat next to the kid who's sitting by himself, and you learned that kid wanted to sit by himself. So you're like, a couple times you would sit next to someone and they're like, I don't, bro, leave me alone. But most of the time, people were very grateful that, I was, someone who was not, who would just come up and sit next to them, right? And just be friendly to them. But I never really developed a really strong, I mean, I had my best friend. I've had my best friend. We've been friends for like 30 years. He actually moved away my junior year of high school. So I had several friends, but I didn't have any like ride or die friends. You know what I mean? My ride or die friend was away. I had several good friends that I would hang out with, but nobody ride or die. Not that one friend or two, those friends that you were really like your brothers, So I had loose friendships all over. So I graduated high school and I went to college and I joined a fraternity. I joined a Christian fraternity in college. And this fraternity was everything that I had ever wanted in friend groups and relationships. This group welcomed me in. They loved on me. I finally felt like I had a group of friends that I could trust and that I would go to death for, and they would go to death for me, or so I thought. And I love these people. I didn't even consider these my friends. I consider these my brothers. I love these guys. We went through, especially my pledge brothers, we went through like crazy situations together. And, we would, especially during our pledgeship, I don't know if any of you guys have ever pledged a fraternity, but you have to go through all these hardships with your pledge brothers. And, it just brought us closer together. And, we were serving out in the community, and we were doing all these things together, and it was just like we were always together. They were always there when I needed them. And I thought, these are people that I can trust with my heart. These are people that are my ride or die. And I've always wanted that. I've only had that one friend, like I said, my friend Andrew, I've had him for 30 years. He's been my only ride or die. But Andrew wasn't around. He was off doing his own thing. So I finally had that, right? So my sophomore year I think it was sophomore year. Maybe it was junior year. I don't remember. I think it was junior year. My junior year of college, I was elected chaplain of that Christian fraternity. And I was an officer. And there were 5 officers. There's the president, the internal, external vice presidents, me, and the chaplain and the treasurer. And my job as chaplain was to be in charge of the spiritual direction of the fraternity. So that was I would speak every week at chapter, very much like a sermon-like format. When we were planning events or parties, it was my job to keep or like community service projects out in the community. It was my job to keep the fraternity on track, organizing those community service projects, making sure we had those activities planned for spiritual growth for our members, and making sure that whatever we did was on message with that spiritual direction, because we were a Christian fraternity at the end of the day, and we had to reflect biblical values. Now, if any of you guys know me, I may be a nice guy, I may be a kind guy, and I'm a very loving guy, but you guys know me, especially if you're in my stream last night. I'm not someone who tells people what they want to hear. Okay, I love you. I will always treat you with kindness. I'm not someone who's ever going to say anything hurtful to you on purpose, at least. I always try to speak out of loving kindness, but I'm not someone, I speak my mind. I'm not someone who's just going to tell you what you want to hear. Right? I'm not going to sugarcoat you. I will be respectful, and I will try to be kind the way I say things, but I'm not just going to I don't just roll over and take things. If I have something to say, I'm going to say it. If I have something on my mind, I'm going to say it. Now, the officer corps would meet weekly to plan events, to plan chapter, plan different things. And I would very often butt heads with the other officers, because you guys know I'm going to speak my mind. And, for me, it was never a big deal. I was just sharing my opinion. Sometimes I got my way. Sometimes I didn't get my way. Sometimes it was 4 against 1. Sometimes it was 3 against 2, whatever. But I would always speak my mind. And, sometimes I knew that we would butt heads a little bit. But to me, these were my brothers. This was nothing like serious, right? This was just back and forth by people who cared about each other. So it wasn't anything that I ever thought would be the cause of any kind of real conflict. And as the chaplain, it was my job to guide the spiritual direction of the fraternity. So there would be things like parties where, you know, they wanted to have alcohol at our parties, or they wanted to have certain themed parties, or they wanted to have certain things done at our different events. And I would say no, I would veto that, because I didn't think that that was on message or on key with who we were as a fraternity. So towards the end of the first semester, something happened, and it was something that would change my life very, very dramatically. The week before, thank you, sweet Alicia. The week before chapter, the president of the fraternity paid me a visit at my home, which I thought was very strange, because we had about, I would say, 50 to 60 people in our fraternity. It wasn't a huge fraternity, but we had about 50 to 60 people. And the president and I had a lot of close, you know, you have little cliques inside the fraternity. We were all brothers, but the president, his name was, well, for purposes, I'll rename him. We'll call him John. John and I, we were friends, but we weren't like the closest of friends and everybody in the fraternity. So the fact that John came over to my house I thought was a little weird, especially without calling first. And John says, Matthew, we want you out of we don't want you to be chaplain anymore. And I was like, why? Completely unannounced. And they said, we are going to take a vote on Monday to impeach you from your position. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, wait, what? Like, I was in shock. I was just absolutely in shock. And the reason, this is not the reason they gave. The reason, guys, was because they wanted someone who was going to be, you know, just roll over and give them what they wanted, who was not going to veto, who's not going to speak his mind, but just go along with what everybody else wanted. That's what they wanted. They wanted someone who's just going to go along, was not going to speak his mind, but just, they wanted a yes man who they could just, they wanted to have their certain events a certain way. They didn't want someone who's going to keep vetoing them and arguing with them over these things. Now, I was shocked, because even though I knew that we would sometimes butt heads, I thought that was just part of the brotherhood. I never, ever imagined that they could do something like this. And I said, well, John, I was shocked. I was on the verge of tears. I was like, I don't understand why you're doing this. He's told me that we just don't think that you're really dedicated to this position. Now, that if there was one person who was dedicated to his position, that was me. It was me. I lived and breathed this fraternity. All right. I was working on my messages for chapter every week. I would book guest speakers for events. I had a freaking bumper sticker of the fraternity on my car. And if you guys know me, I don't do bumper stickers. They're tacky. All right. So I had one on my car, though, because I was just so proud of this fraternity. I had the shirt. I had my clothing. I lived and breathed this fraternity. So for him to come up and say, we just don't think you're committed to your position, was just like, this is the biggest load of horse crap I've ever heard. And so he said, well, we're going to take a vote on it. And I was like, you know, I was distraught. I was hurt. I was like, I felt abandoned. I felt betrayed. I was like, why would they do this to me? How could they do this to me? They know how much I love them. They know my story. I told these guys about my story when I was in military school, how I almost, you know, ended my life. They just know what I've been through. They know that this is the first group of people that I've ever felt really, really close to. Even if what they were saying was true, which it wasn't, they knew how bad this would hurt me. How, as someone who loved them as a brother, could they do this to me? How? So I tried to calm down. I called some of my other friends in the fraternity, and they were shocked as well. Some of the other brothers in my fraternity who weren't in the officer corps, they were shocked, right? But they're like, Matthew, we all know that you love the fraternity. It has to be a majority vote within the fraternity for you to get impeached. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So just relax. Monday will come. They're going to vote, and you'll be fine. So I thought, okay, I calmed down a little bit. I was like, I'm feeling good. Maybe this was just, you know, the officer corps just didn't like the fact that I was, but I mean, I knew that was it. They just didn't like the fact that I was always speak my mind. If there's ever one person who was against the crowd in the officer court, it was always me. So I said, maybe they just, they just wanted a yes man, but I don't know what the fraternity at large is never going to go along with this. So we get up there, chapter begins. They call the fraternity together, and they say, Matthew, we're gonna present this we're gonna present our case before the fraternity, and then you're gonna be able to give any kind of rebuttal that you want, and then we're gonna take a vote. And I was like, fine. Well, what are you gonna tell them? I've literally lived and breathed this fraternity. The only thing that happened was one time, guys, I was very, very sick, and I had to miss chapter one time. I was very, very sick. I had like 103 temperature, but I had been at every other chapter, and it was a chapter that there was already a speaker lined up for. So I didn't need to technically even be there, but I was supposed to be there because I was an officer, but I just couldn't. And I missed that. I didn't even, anyways, I wasn't able to go. But that was literally the only thing that I thought they could use against me. And they did bring that up. But then, to my dismay, they started making up things. They literally just started lying, saying that that I had booked a guest speaker and told this guest speaker that we were going to pay him $500 for this speaking arrangement, and even without getting approval from the treasurer, even though we had all voted together, and it was on the books that we had all voted together to pay that speaker that money. Before I even asked this speaker to do it, they had agreed on this. They started saying how I wasn't committed to my position, how I had not done any of because it was the chaplain's job to organize the retreat, how they all had to do all the arrangements for the retreat, how I basically didn't do anything and I just showed up, even though I literally made all the arrangements. Like literally I did everything other than buy the food. Like literally I did everything, set up everything. And it wasn't like they were even just exaggerating things, right? They were just straight up lying. They were just literally just straight up lying. And I was sitting there going, oh my God, these guys are just lying. And they would and there's several other things they said that I for time, because I'm kind of running over. Like they literally would just make up lies about me. And I was like, how are these people doing this in a place that as representatives of a Christian fraternity? And so they're like, and Matthew can come up and tell his rebuttal. And I was like, how do you address a laundry list of lies, none of which are even true? Like these weren't even exaggerations, guys. These were just straight. How do you address? Like maybe if it was one or two lies, I could, explain. How do you address like 10 or 15 lies that were just literally complete falsehoods about me? And I was just like, all I could say is, guys, you know me. None of this is true. But yeah, it makes it harder because it's like, and when they come up with so many lies, it's like, well, and they started going after lie after lie after lie. I was going, how am I going to address all this? I don't even know what they're talking about. Like, I literally don't even know what they're talking about. And I was hurt, and it ended up very, 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 I told them, guys, this isn't true. I don't even know how to start. Literally, it's not even an exaggeration. This literally, everything they just said is a lie. Everything they just said is a lie. None of that was true. I don't understand why they're doing this, but the officer corps was united in this. Even though technically it was the president and the treasurer who were really behind it. The internal vice president and the external vice president were friends of mine, but they were closer friends with the president and the treasurer. And they knew that it would be easier. They ended up, anyways, so they basically just stayed silent. And the president and the treasurer were really the masterminds behind all this. And they know that the two vice presidents knew that this was all a lie. And I just saw the whole time their heads were held down like this because they knew that all this was a lie. By a very, very slim margin, they voted to impeach me. And I remembered at that moment, I literally just ran out. I ran out. I jumped in my car. I never want to see these people again. I hate these people. I love these people as brothers. And this is what they did. Even if what they were saying was true, which it wasn't, how could they do this knowing that it would hurt me like this? How could they do this? And guys, I went into a very dark, dark place. I didn't want to be around anybody. I ended up taking a full-time job just so I didn't go to parties anymore. I didn't go to football games anymore. I didn't go to social events through my church anymore. As a matter of fact, I started going to church on the outside of town just so I wouldn't have the chance of running into any of my fraternity brothers. I just wanted to be away from them. And there were several times throughout the next year and a half where I would run into fraternity brothers in different classes that I had, just because, there's several people, it was a big university. And I remember I actually had a class with the president of the fraternity. And it was a very big class. We sat in an auditorium, and I remember seeing him one day, and I just flipped him off. And I was just like, you buddy,